video for you, giving you the knowledge that I have to help propel you in every efforts that you're doing in marketing and advertising today. So let's get started. Let's talk about Liftoff. Okay, first of all, who am I? I am Ashley Vinson. I am a creative agency partner here at Facebook. I've been here about 2 years. I work out of the Amsterdam office, and you may notice from my amazing accent that I am American, and I have lived here in Europe for about 9 years now. So, woo! And as you can tell from my image there, they always say, tell something personal about yourself to connect with the audience. So, here's my secret. I hoard toilet paper. I always have. I've been doing it for years. I always need to have enough toilet paper on hand. Otherwise, I feel nervous. And when I mean enough toilet paper on hand, I'm talking about, I don't know, about 30 to 40 rolls. So anyway, I have shared that now with you. Let's a few more things. I used to work at the Twitters, still a big fan of Twitter. I worked there for over 3 years as a brand strategist. Before that, I worked at the big fancy ad agencies like a DDB, and I worked at Tribal, and I worked at BBDO, all wonderful places. And more importantly though, I also worked for tiny little web shops where we were building websites to try to drive conversion on sales of manure or something like that. So I've worked at the big fancy agencies on the big brands, but I've also been down there really trying to drive success for small businesses. So I get it. I know we have a wide range of audience here today, so I hope everything that I'm talking about today is useful for everyone that is watching today. So why did we do this presentation? Why is this Liftoff? So actually Liftoff is my baby, really. I took all the best knowledge that I see coming around in Facebook, and if any of you have ever sat in on Facebook presentations, you know we have a lot of information, and sometimes it can be, well, a little overwhelming, right? And sometimes, you're so down in the weeds that you forget to kind of look up and say, what are we actually doing? What are the principles that we're applying our marketing against? And that's why I designed Liftoff. So I've taken the key knowledge that we have throughout the company, and I've combined it into 4 key principles that you should always think about and follow when you're running campaigns on Facebook and Instagram and the other platforms as well. These are good principles to live by. All right. So let's get started. And again, shout out to the small businesses that are in the audience. I'm a huge fan. I know this has been a rough time for a lot of you, and you have really been doing well. We see amazing work that you're doing on our platforms. So thank you. Keep going. Keep doing it. All right, let's talk about Liftoff and the core principles of success. So 4 things. Real simple. Mobile first, multiple creative, media excellence, and of course, measurement alignment. Okay, let's talk about these 4 things now. First, one of the topics that we hear all the time, mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. So let's first talk about what is mobile first. So as I put on this slide here, mobile first is the content that is created and designed specifically for people on their phone. Okay, created and designed specifically. So what I'm saying is this is original content, not content that we've reused from some other place. We're actually thinking about how to build it. But why are we doing that more importantly? Because we know that creative built specifically for mobile drives better overall campaign performance. How do we do it? Basically, all we need to do is build creative that is specifically thought out, built, created for that mobile environment. So let's look at an example. And this is what I see going on a lot in the industry today. So people have a wonderful TV ad, and we have this wonderful brand here called Chocomel. It is a chocolate drink in the Netherlands. It's in a can, and you gotta shake it and you gotta drink it. And they do a lot of television advertising here. And they had this ad here, ad, great for television. And like a lot of marketers, they thought, okay, well, we have this TV ad, we spent a lot of money on it. Why can't we just resize it, right? And we can make it for mobile. So we chop it down, we make it a little bit shorter, we make it fill the screen. And now, right, boom, we've got a mobile ad. Okay, great. A lot of people are doing this, seeing it happening, but we're missing a big opportunity here. We're missing an opportunity to truly be mobile first. And so one way that we learned about this is that, we run case studies. So we want to know if this is true. And we've run thousands of these case studies to compare this. And I wanted to talk about a specific one that we did here in the Netherlands. So this was a case study where we took the regular TV ad, we ran that on mobile phones to a certain audience. So they're only exposed to the TV ad version. Now, Obviously, if you take a 30-second TV ad in horizontal format and you throw it on the mobile phone, odds have it it's not going to do so great, right? So we kind of knew that, but we wanted to be able to truly compare. So we did test that on a small audience. Then we showed the second one, the optimized TVC, meaning the TV ad that was cut down and reshaped and formatted for a mobile phone. So then we showed those ads to another audience. And then lastly, we had content that was built for mobile by their creative agency, Boomerang, that was made original content, right? So the agency thought about, okay, what would be interesting for people on their phones or sitting in a social environment? What is compelling? What makes that darn thumb stop, right? And so we ran the study, and what did we learn? We learned that the mobile original content performs better. In fact, it was a 36% better brand recall, right? That is 2.5 times better than the adapted ad. So people that were exposed to the mobile content had better brand recall over 2.5 times than the one that was supposedly made for mobile. And why is this important to you? Because if you think about it as a marketer, where am I going to invest my dollars? You know, it's very simple to take your TV ad and pay to have it re-edited. But again, if you know that you're going to gain more success from investing in making original creative, that's where you should be focusing your efforts. So that's what we mean about mobile first. And this isn't really a new thing that we've been learning about. So we ran a lot of studies. So this is data back from all the way in 2016, but it still holds true. And if anything, it's more true today. So what we did is we took a bunch of different ads. So we had kind of the classic TV narrative, we had the adapted to mobile like you saw, and then we had the mobile original. And we compared the results of all these little ads, these are the little dots here on the graph, between recall and the percent that they would be viewed. And so what we saw, you know, the traditional narrative, and this is, you know, back then, that people, you know, they didn't really necessarily remember the TV ad put onto a mobile phone versus they didn't really watch that long. Well, you know, and even more so today, we see that same behavior, right? People now kind of just scroll on by something that's horizontal. The next thing that we did is that we then compared, we said, okay, what if we took that TV ad and we adapted it to mobile? So we chopped it down to 10 seconds, it fit the screen, how much better did it do? Well, the recall definitely went up, and the view time was okay. So, but that third group that we did, which is the mobile first creative, right? The creative that was built specifically for the mobile phone, how did that do? And that's the stuff that knocked it out of the park, right? And that's back then. So if you look at what's happening today, consumers have an expectation of seeing content that's built for the right format. And a lot of advertisers are like, you know, an ad is an ad is an ad, but think about it. If you had a beautiful magazine ad, right? Beautiful magazine ad, would you take that exact same ad and then just kind of crunch it a bit and then throw it up onto a billboard? No, because you'd be thinking, well, okay, someone reading a magazine ad is going to spend a little more time. They're going to be in a different mindset. But, you know, on a billboard, you know, maybe they're just they're walking by or they're driving by and we have to get their attention fast. And that's the same thing. As much as I love television ads, there's nothing wrong with advertising on television. Trying to use content that was created for a different medium, and to use that medium, that same medium content, and put it on a mobile phone in totally different context, it's not going to be as effective as you could be. So again, think about mobile first. So build mobile first creative to fit that mobile mindset to help drive the best possible campaign results, okay? So this should be something we should all be doing today. But let's talk about the second thing, multiple creative, okay? This one is really interesting. I think a lot of people are kind of trying to get their head around this. And what is multiple creative? So multiple creative is the creation of multiple ads in both, you know, the messaging and the format. Okay, so it means that we're creating a bunch of different content. But why are we doing this? Why aren't we just creating one 15-second feed ad and just running that? Well, because we see that multiple ads perform better than single ad campaigns because they leverage how the Facebook algorithm works to deliver that right ad to the right person. So how do we do this? How do we take advantage of it? We create a variety of ads to help that algorithm find that perfect match with your target audience, okay? So why is this? Now think about it. Now, when you use Facebook and Instagram, I don't know about you, but I can get a bit stuck, right? I'm on Instagram and suddenly, I don't know, 2-3 days have passed because they're showing me really relevant content, things that I like. and they seem to kind of know the stuff that I'm interested in. And that's kind of the beauty of the platform. We want you to be looking at content that's relevant to you. So if we look at how people engage in our platforms, they engage in many different ways. So some people, you think about your day, you're running between things. Maybe you're looking at content really fast, right? So you're on the go. And so maybe you're looking at only Instagram stories. You're only looking at short formats. You're looking at GIFs, maybe just at stills. And then, maybe later on in the day or even early in the morning, you have more of a captivated viewing type mode, which means, for instance, in the morning, I wake up, don't want to get out of bed. I sit and I spend a lot of time on Facebook Watch because I'm just watching videos. I'm not in a rush. So I'm more in a mode where I'm willing to consume longer content. Now, all of this is taken into account into our algorithm, into how we deliver content. And that also applies to advertising. And what I tell a lot of clients, I say, well, I don't get it. So why are we having all these ads? And they said, well, it's the same reason you have all these different clothes, right? You never know what the weather is going to be. You're still the same person, but you're switching up the outfits to account for the change in environment. And the change in the environment is how that consumer is consuming your content, which the same person on one day could be looking at a couple of seconds of content and then go into spending 12 minutes a piece of content and then go in and maybe start playing with some sort of game. That same person all on the same day has very different behavior. And we're trying to make sure that we create content that matches that behavior. So again, we've designed that on our platform. We have stories, we have messaging, there's stuff in feed, there's IGTV to watch longer videos. We have original content, there's Facebook Watch, and now there's Reels. So there's so much content on our platform really designed to capture those various moments and mindsets of an individual throughout the day. So this is the trick when you're thinking about how to run advertising on Facebook. So I see a lot of advertisers that say, oh, okay, so I'm just going to take that same ad and I'm going to expose it to people enough times, hammer into their head. Totally get it. But think about it. You're trying to show them the same ad, and assuming they're in the same mindset throughout the whole day. They're just on their mobile phone. It's just the same person. No, we're different on our mobile phone throughout the day. So what we see in all our studies is that, let's say you take an ad and you show that one ad to someone 3 times, right? And then over here in group 2, you take that same ad, but you show it once, and then you show them kind of a different version of that same ad. You show them that as well, and then you show them the third ad as well. So you expose them to essentially the same type of creative, same type of thinking and messaging, but you expose in a little different ways. And again, going back to the billboard example, it's kind of the same thinking. That when we're creating marketing assets, we're thinking about, okay, I'm not going to just make one print ad and be done. I might make a print ad. I might do a billboard. I might do something on a bus stop. I might run a TV ad. I'm creating a bunch of different types of creative to capture that same consumer in different mindsets. And it's the same way on our platform. So when you use this strategy, these are the kind of results we see. So again, dating back from 2017 to 2018, we looked at 3,000 different brand lift studies, right, that were doing this. So they had one piece of creative that was exposed 3 times, and then they had 3 different pieces of creative exposed once to that same person. We compared the results. And what we saw is that those ad campaigns that were set up with multiple creative had more ad recall, they had more top of mind awareness, they had more message association. And the 2 top things that are so hard to move, familiarity and affinity, we saw increases in that. And again, that makes sense because at some point we see the same ad over and over again, we stop seeing it. But imagine if you're able to address that in different ways through different creative, you're going to help raise your brand results. So think about that when you're actually making your campaign. So create that variety of ads to help that algorithm find the perfect match with your audience, right? You want to capture them in the right mindset. You want to have enough different types of ads that can really capture each of that moments. And what's so amazing about the algorithm, it knows when those moments are happening. And if you give it the material, it will help find those right people, which leads me to the next thing, which we're talking about media excellence. So one of the amazing things when I was working at the ad agencies, and of course I knew about media buys, but I didn't know the details per se. And then when I went to Twitter, it was an epiphany. Suddenly I could see the campaign results, I could see the creative go in, and then I could see the media on it, and I could see the results. And every time when I'm looking at a campaign, it was one of 2 things were wrong. The creative wasn't very good, or the media wasn't placed properly. right? So you can have the most amazing creative, but bad media will tank it. You can have the most amazing media placements, crappy creative will tank it as well. So really important to think about how are you strategizing your media and placing the creative so you have the biggest chance for success. And so when I'm talking about media excellence, I'm meaning thinking about reaching consumers at every stage in the funnel by, again, going back to leveraging how that algorithm works using signals. So the Facebook algorithm is powered by all the signals that consumers are giving, and that's what we're using to help determine which ad should go to which person. So, and why, and how do you do that? Because you use broad targeting. Broad targeting to allow the algorithm to optimize that campaign based on your KPI. So you have a lot of different assets and then you're targeting broad. Let's dive a little deeper into that. So signals, you heard me mention signals. What the heck are signals? You might have heard of signal marketing. So signals are the things that people are giving out to indicate preference, what they like, what they watch. So a signal can be anything from a pixel firing, so we know they left something in the cart. It could be the fact that they paused on a video and they watched it for a long time. It could be something coming from the SDK. It could be likes. It could be a lot of things. And there's over 1 billion different signals that we're looking at to help inform our algorithm to make sure the right content gets to the right person. And to give an example of that, right? How does this actually work with these signals? How can we help find people? Now, what we see is a lot of people, and this is more kind of old school Facebook. So before I even worked at Facebook, this is the way that I thought as well, is that, okay, I'm going to set up a campaign, right? So let's pretend I have a 50,000 pounds of campaign and I want to show that ad 2 times a week for 4 weeks. So here in group A, I set my objective of video views. That means I want them to watch my video because I know if they watch my video, that's going to have impact. And I know my audience is 20 to 40 years old and they have to have an interest in fashion, because that's the best way, right? Then I set up a second campaign, right? So I'm testing this out. And then I said, no, I'm going to make my objective reach. I'm going to go broad, right? I'm going to go big. And I'm going to keep my targeting relatively loose. I'm going to just do people 20 to 40, right? I'm not going to have any fashion. I'm going to just let that go. I'm going to say to the algorithm, just reach people 20 to 40-year-olds with my content. So you're spending this money. Here's an example what tends to happen, right? In group A, you reach 2.7 million. In group B, you reach 10.6 million people, because this is kind of how the algorithm works, right? So when you kind of rein it in and you say to the algorithm, only find me people that watch video views, only find me people interested in fashion, that narrows its ability to actually find people and tends to drive the media costs up. If you broaden that audience and you say, okay, nope, I just want reach 20 to 40-year-olds, it can help find a lot more people. Now, I can hear you thinking, you're like, yeah, but I want those people that are into fashion, right? And I need them to watch my video view. But is that the right way to think? Do you know for a fact that if they're interested in fashion, they're going to buy your brand? Do you know for a fact that they're going to actually, if they watch your video, they're going to buy more? I would wager not. So we know that people who might be interested in your brand, let's say this is your audience, right? So those are 2 people that like fashion, right? But that whole group of people could be interested in your brand, right? And this is kind of classic, how to grow a brand. You have to reach a broad audience to do that. And even if that 10 million, and half of those people are relevant, you're still getting over a 2 million bump on that possible audience. And again, the algorithm is driven to find the right person to the right creative. So loosening up your targeting and going bigger and helping the algorithm give it more room to find the right people will help you find those new audiences without necessarily increasing your media costs. So think about that, again, cast that wide net. If you're thinking about people most likely to buy your product, narrow, okay, maybe that's a safer bet, but imagine opening that up. Not only do you get the people that would probably buy your product, but you're potentially reaching a new audience. So think about that with media excellence. Use that broad targeting as broad as you can go to find that audience and allow the algorithm, using all the different signals and the things that it knows that you may not know about, to find the right person for your ads. Okay, last thing. Measurement alignment. Oh my God, measurement. This is something that I never ever thought about when I was at the ad agencies. We'd make the campaign and be like, all right, good luck, bye. But this is so critical today. We have to be thinking about how are we going to measure this campaign? Are we looking at the right numbers? Do we know we're having success? So when I'm talking about measurement alignment, I'm talking about not of using non-proxy KPIs to measure success and align creative goals. Why? Because proxy KPIs can give misleading indicators of campaign results. When the creative is not aligned to those KPIs, you're going to result in not achieving your desired results. What do you do to do this? You want to set real KPIs, real goals, and you want to also ensure that the creative you're making is aligned to those same KPIs. All right, it's a little bit complicated. Let's dive in a little bit more. All right, so proxies. So proxy metrics may show correlation, not causation. What this means is, for instance, I hear all the time, like, we want to drive engagement. We want to drive engagement. We want likes. We want likes. Why? Why do you want likes? Because we believe if you're engaged and you engage on our ad that you like us more. Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But there is no proof right now that that's true. Now, it may make you feel better to get really high engagement, but it doesn't necessarily correlate to brand outcomes. And you see that in research time and time again. Believe me, I wish it did. If all we had to do was get a bunch of likes to drive business success, whew, our jobs would be easy. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. Someone can certainly look at your ad, they can certainly feel great about you, and they can certainly never like it, right? Okay. Real KPIs. So what are real KPIs? That means choosing metrics that directly relate to your business goals and desired outcomes, right? So again, a lot of times I'll see advertisers like, we want engagement. Why? Because that means we had awareness. No. So, engagement for engagement's sake, maybe there's a reason for it, but a lot of times we're not setting real goals. We're saying, well, we're going to look at the click-through rate, because we know that means that we had better top of mind awareness. Again, that doesn't necessarily correlate. You have to find better ways to measure that. And you want to use the right tools to do that. So at Facebook, we have brand lift studies. There's also Kantar, there's Nielsen. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. And as marketers, we kind of have to get off those numbers that we so fall in love with. I've been doing digital for such a long time now, and I know it's so amazing all the data we can look at. And we try to draw results from that and say, okay, that's what happened. But the reality is we don't know. And that's why I made this. So I sat in so many meetings and I was always shown these media buys here, right? And they're like, look at this. Look at how many impressions. Look at our reach. Look at our 3-second view. Look at that 95% view completion rate and our CPM and our engagement rate. And this is all very interesting data, and you can definitely infer things from that, especially for those marketers that are focusing on bottom of the funnel. A lot of these metrics are super critical, but for those that are looking at top of the funnel and even mid funnel, what does any of this data mean, right? And so I made this graphic up and I was like, okay, if you looked at this data and your target was, I want to make sure that I am driving better top of mind awareness. This is my goal. Which of these numbers is going to prove that you had good top of mind awareness? Take a second, look at the chart. Is it because I had more impressions? Is it because my reach? Were my 3-second views? Again, these are all proxy metrics, right? Because we can look at the numbers, but they don't necessarily indicate success. So what does indicate success? So different things you want to think about for core campaign outcomes. You can have audience outcomes, which, you're measuring and optimizing how you reached your audience. You can talk about brand incomes, measure how your media spend impact your brand objectives. And of course, sales outcomes, measure how your media spend impacted sales objectives. Again, different questions to ask under each one. I won't go through all of them, but again, think about what are your real objectives and what are you trying to measure against that. And there's different ways to measure all those. So for audience, you can look at A/B testing. You can look at Nielsen. For brand, you can run a Facebook brand lift. There's Millward Brown. And sales, of course, you can look at a Facebook conversion lift. So be really specific of what you're trying to achieve. Make sure that's not a proxy, and then find the right way to measure that. And this is just a quick screenshot. A lot of people don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying brand study measurement. And this is what I mean. So what happens is that when you run a brand lift study, Facebook sends 3 questions out to the audience, and we try to reach enough people to get statistically sound information. And so they're asked a question. And so for instance, there's always an ad recall question. Do you recall seeing an ad for, XXX brand? We always have a control group, meaning one group that was not exposed to the ads. And then we have the test group that was exposed to the ads. So the brand lift study then compares the group that wasn't exposed to the group that was exposed. They run this quiz against both groups, and then they see what the difference was. And I've done this enough times now that these are things that really measure impact. These are things that are real, because we don't need to look at engagement or view through rate. We can actually run studies to see the impact. Now, super important, super important. So this is something I don't see being done enough, which is a lot of times that we will build the creative and then afterwards we go, oh, let's run a brand lift study or let's run a study with questions. And we forget to ensure that the creative is aligned to what we're actually studying. So in this example here, I've taken this fake brand that we have here at Facebook called Spruce. And for instance, on the left, right, one of the questions might be, have you heard of Spruce brand? What does that mean for the creative? That means you gotta talk about Spruce. The logo has to be there. It has to be in the copy because you're trying to truly measure and drive people remembering Spruce brand. So make sure that's in the creative. And then on the right side, let's say you want to drive product association, right? You want people to know that Spruce is hand soap. Well, if you want to know Spruce is hand soap, you gotta mention it, you gotta show it in the visuals. And this seems like a no-brainer, right? But a lot of times people aren't actually thinking about these things. They're thinking about the goals they want to achieve and they totally forget about the ad they made. They're like, we want to see how many people associate our brands with dogs. And meanwhile, they've just made a bunch of ads with cats. So think about these. So summary, use non-proxy KPIs to measure your impact and ensure that your ads have been created to align to those goals. So again, if you're trying to drive website visits, are your ads clearly making a call to action to go to your website? If you're trying to drive brand awareness, are you presenting your brand in the first 3 seconds? Are you talking about it? If you're trying to drive product association, have you mentioned what that product is? Have you talked about it enough? Again, make sure those things are in there if you're measuring it. And a lot of times we miss that. Okay, wrapping up. So getting started. So again, we talked about mobile first, right? Making content that fits the mobile mindset, multiple creative, making enough assets and ads that we can help give the algorithm enough things to try out and find the right audience. And that ties again to media excellence, making sure that we target a broad enough audience to let the algorithm use those multiple assets and find new audiences and reach the right person. And of course, the last one we just discussed, measurement alignment, ensuring that we have real KPIs that we're measuring our success against, and even more importantly, that the creative we create actually matches those KPIs and help drive those results. So, most importantly, these are sometimes really big changes in an organization to make these happen. And one of the things that you want to do to support those principles is make a good brief to your teams, right? Check how you're briefing people. So when I first got to Facebook, when I saw campaigns that weren't doing well, about 90.6% of the time, you can tell I measured it, it was tied back to the brief. The brief wasn't strong. It didn't have clear KPIs. It didn't talk about mobile first. So make sure your brief reflects the 4 principles that we're talking about here. Test and learn, right? Facebook is awesome for testing. You can test on small audiences and you can see how things are going. And within a few days, you get some insights that can help you do this. So when you're doing campaigns, make sure you have a clear question in mind that you're trying to learn. Take those learnings and apply it to the next campaign. The smartest people on our platform are using this system. They are testing, taking those lessons and launching again and applying it to their next campaign. And lastly, embrace new tools. There are so many amazing tools out there that can help you do a lot of these principles. And, for instance, on the multiple assets, if you're sitting there in Photoshop and you're resizing everything by hand, you're taking too long. There's software and tools out there that can do a lot of these multiple assets that you don't need to make 3, you can make 300 and in about the same amount of time. So again, look at new tools to actually help drive success on the platform. There's tons of companies out there that are building these amazing tools that can help you with these 4 principles. So thank you so much. I wish you the best in your own liftoff. I hope these principles have helped.